Hello and welcome to the Kelcast, the Hearthstone Arena podcast, where we try to get better without cursing. I'm Kelladar, a longtime arena player and streamer on Twitch. Joining me is my co-host, another arena player, Kellen Abel. Remember, if you want to find us on social media, you can search Kelladar on Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter. That's Keludar. You can also search the Kelcast on Google, and it'll bring up all of the different places you can listen to us. All right, Kellen, this is the very special start of one of our new things, so tell us about it.
Well, this week is the first round of the Grand Arena Tournament. We've got 64 cards. Well, right now we've got 184 cards pitted against each other in a battle to determine which is the most format-defining monster of its time, which are the best cards we've ever seen in any format in Arena history. So today our job is to reduce the bracket to 64 cards that are the most meta-defining cards of their eras, and hopefully we can bring this down to a March Madness style NCAA type bracket.
Yeah. So let me explain how this is sort of going to work in a general sense. So my original idea was 32 cards. And then as I made a Reddit post, and I put a couple things on there. I said that, cards that weren't in the meta very long, like Dragon Ball Poacher wouldn't count, those type of things. And I think I got like 60 responses, which for the Arena HS Reddit is a lot of responses, actually. And I suddenly realized that 32 cards wasn't going to cut it. And I didn't know even sure if we have to get to 64, but like the truth is there's just been so many crazy cards. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that cards were evaluated against each other based on the time they were in the meta. So like you wouldn't, obviously Piloted Shredder in the current meta would never make a top 64 list, but the idea is that all the different eras of Arena will be represented. So that's at least the goal. And it's kind of be fun, have a history of the game. And we'll just talk about, and the other thing we're going to do is once we break this down a couple times, we're going to bring on a panel of a total of 5 people. So it'll be me, it'll be Kellen. I got the other confirmation I have is Dreads will join us. And then we'll have 2 other guests, and then there'll be a panel of 5 people. We'll take the 64 cards, and we'll basically have them go one-on-one each other. It'll be a randomly generated bracket of all the cards, and they'll just be up against one-on-one, and then we'll just vote. And the 5 of us will vote, and we'll like move on to the next one, and we'll eventually get to the most powerful Arena card of all time in our first, what is it called again? The Grand Arena Tournament. There we go. Yeah. All right. So, so let's... I guess I'll let you. You have the list, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, so it's at the bottom of our show notes. You can just scroll down and you'll see it too. But our plan is we're going to go through a bunch. We've identified 184 cards that are format defining or very powerful in their metas, and we're gonna try and reduce it to 64 today. So cards that we think we might not get it all the way down to 64. We might have to do that afterwards, but we're gonna get close as possible. And that's the goal. See which cards were the most powerful in their eras. So are you ready to get started, Kel? Can we start?
I am really excited. Yes.
Okay. So the first card in our list, and we basically went from the oldest sets to the newest sets. So the first card is 2 mana, Unleash the Hounds. So Unleash the Hounds when it costs 2 mana. This card was so ridiculous, but unfortunately, I think it may actually get the axe because it was only that powerful because it existed with Buzzard, which in the initial beta era and the 2 mana era, it was a 4 to 5 mana combo that resulted in drawing however cards equal to the number.
Was it 2 mana on release like of the game or just in beta?
I actually can't remember. It fluctuated quite a bit between 2 and 3 mana. It went up and down because they tried to nerf each card, Buzzard and Starving Buzzard and Unleash the Hounds and they just kept going back and forth. They ended up leaving Unleash at 3 and Starving Buzzard at 5, and now obviously that's changed, but that was the longest format or existence of the 2 cards. I think this card has to get off the list, unfortunately, because it was so powerful purely because it existed with Starving Buzzard. Are you cool with that?
Yep, I'm down.
Okay, next card, Savannah Highmane. What do you think?
Again, I mentioned this, so guys, you have to understand this one thing about me. I didn't start playing Hearthstone at all until GVG, and I didn't even start playing Arena until basically BlackRock and TGT meta. So I kind of have to lean on Kellen here a little bit. I would say probably not, but I didn't have enough experience to feel like I can make a real solid decision on this one.
So I'm going to put an asterisk by it because I do believe it was one of the most individually powerful cards at the time. If you had a Hunter deck and you had Savannah Highmane, you were in a good spot. If you didn't have Savannah Highmane, you were in a rough spot.
Okay.
Next, we've got Flame Strike.
Has to be
Flame
on there.
Strike is going to be on the list. There's no way around it.
Yeah,
it's one of the best.
Well, there's going to be some that we go through and we're like, yeah, it's on there. It's going to be on the list. Yeah. Now we're gonna put it as the 4 mana or the 4 damage one, not the newer one.
Right. The initial stage, Flame Strike in beta, back when it was killing Gnomish Inventors and all of your River Crocs and all that stuff. 8 mana Pyroblast. This was the original printing of Pyroblast. It cost 8 mana. I don't think we can remove that. It was miserable to play against. It was miserable to play with it. It was awful. It truly was one of the most powerful cards.
I will say this, though. If it ends up being that it was only 8 mana in beta, we probably will take it off. I just don't know. Like, if it was, by the time it got to Classic Arena, when the game was released, was it still 8?
Well, beta was, well, that's a good question. I'm actually not sure when the nerf happened. Okay. So we'll have to come back. I'll put another asterisk. We got another asterisk already.
All right.
All right, so now we have a big question. Are we going to include legendaries or not? Because our next card is Tyrion Fordring.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. Maybe we don't.
I think we don't for now. I think we have to come back and talk about it later. Maybe we do a subset of the most powerful legendaries. Maybe that's a next podcast we do. The most powerful legendaries of all time, and we have to leave them off this one.
Yeah. I can understand now seeing the list that, like, there's some cards that I really wanted to include, but I guess maybe we just can't.
How about Flame Tongue Totem? 2 mana 0/3 in its original printing. Give it neighboring minions +2 attack.
So there's 2 problems with this. One, Shaman's always been my weakest class, so for that reason I just don't enjoy it. And I also didn't play during this time, so I would probably say no, but it could potentially be, if it was like meta defining in the arena and this, then I would say keep it. I just don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna asterisk it, but I think it's.
What does asterisk mean? Does that mean we're keeping it or no, we're not?
That means we're temporarily keeping it, but they are ripe for the cutting block if necessary.
All right.
The next one is going to 100% stay on the list. This is Fiery War Axe when it costs 2 mana. 2 mana weapon that was a 3/2.
Yeah, I think we should do another symbol if we're like 1,000% sure. You know what I mean? I don't know if you like put
I think that it should stay on.
Yeah, like if we're like 1,000% sure it's on the list for like no doubters, then we should do something, a different symbol.
Okay, I think we should just leave it as it is because
okay.
I think that just means if it doesn't have a symbol and it's on the list, that means it's on the list. So I think that's
fair. All right, so next we got Mind Control Tech. Now again, this card was banned at one point, but like this card for sure is like gonna be on the list. Like this card. This is a card that, like, you actually literally would get to the end of your game and you would literally not play cards on purpose because of this card, because it was literally the only way you lost, and you would lose to it.
Yep, and there was including up to the format where Jeweled Scarab, the 2 mana 1/1 that would discover a 3-cost minion. If your opponent had cast that card and not played their card that they discovered off of it, there's no chance you would ever drop your 4th minion because Mind Control Tech was almost for sure in their hand, and you should be and were too scared to cast a 4th minion. Mind Control Tech was a monster of its era. I'm gonna skip the next one because I feel like it's obvious asterisk. So let's go. And this one doesn't work. This one doesn't work. Okay,
I think
so
you almost cut. Did we just cut Azure Drake?
Yeah, I think we can cut Azure Drake. It was good. Everyone drafted it, but I don't think that meant that it was on the list.
Zombie Chow, I think, is making it.
Yes, so Zombie Chow is making the list 100% because the only time Zombie Chow has ever been bad for me is when I cast it and my opponent coined up a Mad Bomber and all 3 pings went to my Zombie Chow. Every other time, it's been absolutely unbelievable. You could not draft a deck that didn't have an early game in the Zombie Chow era because your opponent, if they had Zombie Chow, would be so far ahead of you by the time you developed a board that it didn't matter. And on that same vein, original printing of Undertaker is our next card. We're in the Naxxramas era right now. Undertaker in its original printing was a 1 mana 1/2 that would get +1/+1 every time you summoned a Death Rattle minion. And Naxxramas was loaded with Death Rattle minions. So things like Zombie Chow, Haunted Creeper, another card we're going to see in a second, and many, many other cards. Undertaker was absolutely busted. You took it all the time. It was a disaster. If your opponent played Undertaker, it was just as bad or worse than if they played Zombie Chow. So That card was quite good.
Do you think that card just 1,000% makes it, or is it?
In its original printing, yes. After the nerf, no. Obviously, it became miserable. But yeah, it was. You could not play like this meta because of Zombie Chow and Undertaker. You could not exist in this meta without a way to answer those two things.
What do you think about Sludge Belcher going to get cut? It was really good. I think
they have to cut Sludge Belcher. It was a card you always had to think about, but it did not define the meta or make. I mean, it was very, very good. It worked very well in all the decks, but unfortunately, I think Sludge Belcher's off the list. We had it initially, but it doesn't live up to the same format. Now, the next card I think does make the list without question because this was
Kellen. I think you're a little biased on this one. I'm just saying. I'm kidding.
So actually, no, I'm kidding. I would
kidding.
say that, but I didn't like Hunter back then. I actually did not play Hunter back in these days.
You didn't like Hunter? Are you kidding?
I did not used to like Hunter. That's a more recent addition to my repertoire. But yeah, Glaive Zuka is the card. And Glaive Zuka was the only reason you could even play Hunter back then. Because you could do something, for example, Zombie Chow on turn 1, or Coin Haunted Creeper was the real one. And followed up with Glaive Zuka, and suddenly you had a board that was so damaging and so deadly that your opponents didn't really have an option except to figure out a way to deal with it. Yeah, Glaive Zuka was a monstrous weapon in its initial stage.
Okay.
Are we cutting the next one because of its instability?
Yeah, so we have Unstable Portal. Yeah, I think we cut it.
Oh, man, it was so good.
It was good.
What do we think about the card after that?
Well, yeah, tell them what it is. They don't know.
Hog Hammer. This is a tough one for me. You didn't see it all that often, but my God, was it good when you got to play it.
God, I think you saw it enough, though. Yeah. I mean, I know it was an epic.
Yeah, let's toss an asterisk on it because we didn't see it that much, but man, it is up there. And the next card has to be on the list. This was... Yeah. This and Implosion were two of the most defining cards of this era, which we'll get to Implosion in a second, but this card is Muster for Battle. That's a 3-mana paladin spell that equipped a Life's Justice and made 3/1/1 Silverhand recruits. My God, this card was it basically was the card you wanted if you're a paladin. If you had this card on turn 3 or coin 2, it was
and there was some nutty combos with it. Like if a lot of people like you would just draft Knife Jugglers, and dude, if you played Knife Juggler into this, the game ended, like, it was way beyond ended. It was over.
Yeah, like, there were just too many ways for this card to be good. Direwolf Alpha existed. Yep. Shattersun Cleric was a good card. A lot of the small minion buffs were really powerful, and Muster for Battle was one of the reasons.
Yeah, Muster for Battle is going to be a slam dunk on the list. Do you think Shielded Minibot's supposed to be on there or no?
It was on there. I think it's another card that's just another good one. It wasn't as powerful as something like Undertaker or Zombie Chow, where your opponent could just play a 2/3 and you'd have a matchup. So I don't remember removing it, but I guess I did. I don't know.
That's fine.
Okay, next card is the first Priest card because Priest was very bad for a very long time. This is the reason Priest existed, Light Bomb. This is the only reason you could play Priest for a little while. If you had Light Bomb in your deck, you had a reasonable chance of winning at least a game or two. And Priest was one of the worst classes for the first, forever of Arena.
I was trying to think about this card. The thing is that it was really one of the first truly busted board clears.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it has to be included on the 64 list because it literally was like, there was nothing like it at the time. Like, you could argue maybe Nether, but that was 8 mana. So, like, this, it just wasn't even this. You could actually play this on turn 10 and actually tempo out a 4-drop like a Yeti or something, and it was just crazy.
I mean, I lost to Light Bomb today, so it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Here's another card that got removed from Arena. Right? Isn't that right?
It did.
Goblin
there was a certain, so there was a period when they banned specific cards like Faceless Corruptor, and they banned some bad cards and also just some cards that were just crazy broken. Like they even made their nerf to Flame Strike was they made it 50% as likely instead of its normal amount. So I don't know if
Goblin Auto Barber was one of those cards that got nerfed because you again, if you played again, it's kind of this, you're going to see this recurring theme where if your opponent is playing the class that includes this card in the early game, you have to completely change what you did or at least plan ahead the best you could. And if you couldn't plan ahead and they had it, you would lose the game. And Goblin Auto Barber was one of those cards. It's a very unassuming card. It's just a 2-mana 3/2 mech that has Battle Cry, give your weapon +1 attack. But man, that really worked out. It was a 2-mana 3/2 that dealt 2 damage extra, was the actual text on the card that it didn't read. So it was a very powerful card in its era. Led to a lot of early game victories.
Do
you want to talk about the next card? Do you want to talk about the next card here?
Yeah, Implosion. The Implosion, which was a card that read deal 2 to 4 damage and summon that many imps, but for Keladar, it read always do 2 damage.
But what did it read for your opponents, Kel? What did
it always read 4. No, but seriously, I streamed during this time, and I swear, man, like this, I know that I say I'm unlucky a lot, but this specific card, like more than many, it was just crazy. The only time I could ever get it to more than 2 is when I played with Shady Bunny. No, but I don't know if it should make the list or not. I guess it should. It's man.
You had to play. It was the best Warlock card that existed at the time. I think it.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't look that good right now. It doesn't look.
Well, no, I know that, but again, I'm trying to think how we can ever get this list down.
Yeah. Well, Piloted Shredder is the next card, and this was a card that everybody drafted the minute they saw it because there really weren't that many bad 2-drops back then. There weren't a lot of costume entertainers. There weren't a lot of cards that led to. There weren't a lot of Battle Cry 2-drop minions that led to future victories. For Piloted Shredder, it was pretty much River Crocs and Bloodfen Raptors. So you were getting a 6/6 for 4 mana with Piloted Shredder back when it was first printed.
Yeah.
That card, yeah, I mean, Piloted Shredder was one of the best cards. I think we got to cut the next one because while it's one of our two favorites, Fel Reaver. Fel Reaver is probably our favorite card, but man, it did. If your opponent actually knew how to play against it, it ended up not being as good as if they didn't.
Yeah. So the next card we have is Flame Waker for Mage. I would say that card definitely makes it.
Yeah. No. Is that right? I thought. Oh, what? You're right. Sorry. Yep. My bad. I misunderstood. Flame Waker is the 3-mana 2/4 that when you cast a spell, you deal 2 random damage. Is that correct?
Yep, correct. Yep.
Yeah, that card was very good. And then another class card that dealt damage, and this is a card that was outside the realm of what this class did, which is what made it. There were multiple rants on the Grit and Goat podcast about how, or the Lightforge podcast, about how frustrating this card was to play against. Dark Iron Silver. It was a 5-mana 4/3 that dealt 2 damage to each undamaged opposing minion. Basically, it was a 5-mana 4/3 that cast Blizzard on your opponent's creatures, and man, it was miserable. You know how it feels when your opponent top decks the 4-mana 4/4 that deals 2 or 4 damage if they top decked it? Yeah, it felt worse than that. That's how bad it was to get Dark Iron Sculptor.
This card honestly was like the Twin Tyrant of its time. Like, in terms of how it was a different man. It was earlier in the game, but like, the swing of a neutral card, well, not a neutral card, but the swing of a card to just basically end the game immediately. And there just wasn't enough ways in that period to recover from it. Nowadays, you would just be able to like spew out more minions, but it was pretty insane. Next, we got Darnayris Aspirant.
I think this has got to stay. It was the only reason to play Druid for a little while. It was a way to get ahead, and if your opponent killed it, then the worst case scenario was you were just ahead by like only 1 turn instead of multiple. Yeah. So, I remember you and me drafted multiple co-op decks with Darnayris Aspirant that went 12 without really any struggles. That card was very good.
Yeah.
Followed up with Totem Golem.
I was wondering if we should cut this one, even though it was just great. It was good. I mean, it was obviously really good.
It's tough. It's tough to say. So Shaman sucked in this era. That's one of the things. So Shaman was very, very bad. Mm-hmm. Should we get rid of Shaman? Should we get rid of this just because Shaman was so bad? Maybe.
Well, I was looking at these 3 cards. So the next cards on the list, we have Totem Golem, we have Flame Juggler, and we have Argent Horse Rider. And I keep thinking like probably only one of these cards can make the list.
Yeah, well, Argent Horse Rider was very good, but I think we can cut that because it was just a good card. I think Flame Juggler is an interesting one because it was a very good card, but your opponents couldn't really play around it because if they played around it, then they were sacrificing their board, and then if they didn't play around it, they were only suffering a 50-50 chance of getting messed up. So let's take the Flame Juggler out too. And that leaves us with, let's leave Totem Golem with an asterisk because I did feel like it was one of the first most overpowered minions for its cost.
All right.
This next card is our favorite card.
Yeah, well, listen, I had to fight Kellen a little bit to get this on the 184 so we get it on the show. But Shithorse is here to stay. He's not leaving. He's making the top 64. Because, like, look, I even have rules set for him. Like, he does everything you want. He has RNG. He goes face and he charges. I mean, he's gotta stay. At least get an asterisk, right?
Okay. So he's a 4-mana 5/3 beast with battle
with
cry.
the worst
Well, I don't know if
with battle cry. The battle cry is the worst mechanic Hearthstone ever made, which is joust.
Yes, joust.
How can a joust card not be included as part of the history of Hearthstone?
Okay, so we got to include it. Fair enough. So Armored Warhorse, basically, it was either fantastic, because if it jousted, it was unbelievable.
This is basically going to be a card that'll only be included because I'm running the podcast.
Fair
but
enough.
It should.
Anyways, we're gonna put it on the list, but it is definitely not one of the best 64 cards of all time. However, when it hit, my God, was it good? And it did lead to our most dominant 12-win run of all time. So I'll take it.
That's true.
Next, we've got North Sea Kraken. Ooh,
I think that one's got to be on there.
Yep. I don't know if you guys, if you didn't live in the North Sea Kraken era, this was before Firelands Portal, and so nobody was really familiar with the concept of a 2-for-1 that could go face with part of that too, that also just could dominate a board by itself because it could do 2 things for 1.
Yeah, because it could either just do 4 damage face, which at that time period, just being able to do 4 face through a taunt was so good. And the other thing it could do is most minions that were like mid-game minions were like 5/4s and stuff. You could just basically, you would remove his board sometimes. Like, you can't, I know it's hard to believe, but 4 damage was enough to just remove somebody's board completely. And then 9 damage was set to go face. Like that was a very common occurrence at that time. So,
yeah. And even if they stuck an Annoyatron or something in front of it, you're still getting a 2-for-1. So unless you're in danger of losing, North Sea Kraken would produce enough volume of power and toughness on the board that you would just win the game over the course of 3 turns because of its stats.
Yeah.
After that, we've got Keeper of Oldman, another card that completely changed how you play.
Yeah, that one's got to be on there.
Right. That card. So if you played against a Paladin deck, you had to be aware of Keeper of Oldman. That's the 4-mana 3/4 battle cry. Set a minion's attack and health to 3/3. So this seemed like it was a defensive card initially. Like everybody rated it as though they were going to try and remove their opponent's 5/5 and make it a 3/3. But it turns out Keeper of Oldman was just as powerful when it made your Silverhand Recruit into a 3/3, and then you had played a 4-mana 5/6. So yeah, Keeper of Oldman was fantastic.
All right, so our next card is Dark Peddler. I think we can just cut this card.
Yeah, Dark Peddler's got to go. It was fantastic in its era, and the next one too.
And Obsidian Destroyer, very good, was on our 184, but we're going to just cut it.
This one's got to stay, this next one, because this was
the next card,
oh, God.
Call of the Wild, but its original 8-mana form before it was nerfed. Being able to play this in Hero Power on 10, oh my God, was it like...
It was so awful. I don't know what you were supposed to do.
Because your whole board, if you even had one, so if you had like 3 minions on board, it was +3. If you had 3 minions on board, this card was basically +3 damage, +5 damage, and then if you had to hero power, so you could do 10 damage to like someone if you were at 10 mana and had a couple of minions on board. Pretty
crazy. Awful. Yeah, screw Call of the Wild. It's got to be on there, and this is in its initial printing, remember? So that is the important thing. But my God, next we got Twilight Flamecaller. I actually can't even remember what that card is.
3 mana 2/2. Deal 1 damage to Battlecry. Deal 1 damage to all enemy minions.
Oh yeah, no, this card is fantastic. This was you had to completely change how you played against Mage in the Twilight Flamecaller eras.
Yeah, so there was a you'll see a power creep as we talk about these cards. We talked about this with basically AOE's, like 1 damage AOE's in Arena. This was the first. Actually, I thought there was another card we were going to talk about. We kind of skipped over this one fast. This was actually the first one. Then we get to another one we're going to talk about soon that was also like that. The next card on our list is Evolve. I actually don't know if we should cut it.
Yeah, I think that's got to go. It ended up not being that powerful of a card. The effect was very powerful as an effect, and it was revisited and made. There are some cards with the same effect that are going to be good, but I don't think Evolve itself.
Yeah, the thing is there's another card we're going to say. When you know another card like it is just absolutely better than that is basically in a sense the same card, you have to cut it. It just
Now we've got one of the cards that is one of Hearthstone's classic meme cards, Flame Wreathed Faceless. I don't know if you guys ever heard the term 4-mana 7/7, but this is where it started. Yep. Right here with Flame Wreathed Faceless. So that's making the list. There's no way around it.
That card, man. When I saw that card when it's printed, there's certain cards over the course of Arena when you see them printed, you like when you see them revealed on Twitter or something, you think to yourself, oh, somebody's just being funny. There's no way that's real. You know what I mean? And then it was. The other card I can think of like that was Bone Bear, but this was the first one. Okay, so the next one on our list is Oz First Mate. I think we actually cut this one.
Oh, so
I know it's really good.
We've got two cards, two warrior cards in this next set, in this next list from N'Zoth's First Mate and Ravaging Ghoul. Shoot, do we have to cut these two?
I actually think we have to cut them both.
Yeah, damn, that's tough. Those are great cards, but and the next one too. So the next card is a signpost card, Bog Creeper. It was a signpost card of how the format worked. Bog Creeper was not the only large taunt minion in the set. This was the same set as Psychotron and Dark Arakoa and all these other big old taunt boys. And Bog Creeper was a signpost common that showed you what this format was going to be like, but it really ended up not being. It was a good card. It was a very good card, but it was not one of the best cards. So I think we end up having to take Bog Creeper off our list.
Yeah.
Not the next card, though. Definitely don't have to take the next card off.
What's the next one? Sorry.
Firelands Portal.
Oh yeah, this is one of those cards that I knew would be potentially in the top 10 of like the best cards ever. Because you have to remember this specific card. Now there's certain cards that were meta definers for sure, but this one was like a step above in some ways because like literally there were many games once it was figured out, like this always happens in arena metas with streamers and stuff too. You know, a class is good and a card is good, and then streamers start playing it, and then the rest of the arena population picks up on how good a card is. This was one of those times where people figured out that Mage was by far the best. There wasn't micro adjustments, and Firelands Portal was just like beyond busted. And like I'm not kidding, I remember a game, I'll never forget it, where literally there was 5 Firelands Portals in a row played each turn, 5 turns in a row. I played one, then my opponent Fireland portaled my 5 drop that came off, and then I did it to his, and we literally just removed each other's portal cards until like none of us was left, and the game was over. So it just was crazy. So yeah, this card is definitely going to be a contender to win it, I think.
Yeah, Maelstrom Portal I think also has to be on there. That's the next card. It is it was the only reason Shaman was good for a little bit. There were just a lot of ways to clean things up at that time. There weren't a lot of pings.
I just was wondering if we need to cut this because of Portal of Firelands. Like if it's actually not going to be good enough.
They were totally different cards. I think Shaman only existed in that era because of Maelstrom Portal. It was not a... I mean, Flame Wreath Faceless was good too, but I felt like Maelstrom Portal was good. I'll put an asterisk on it, but
I would actually
don't
cut
feel
it
like
probably.
It's cuttable.
But yeah, I can understand why.
Fool's Bane's on. That's the next card. Fool's Bane is the 5-mana 3/4 warrior weapon that attacks any number of times per turn. You're basically have infinite Wind Fury, but it can only attack minions. Yeah, this card finally made warrior playable. There was no reason to play warrior until Fool's Bane came out. And then suddenly you had to be scared that on turn 5 your opponent would clear your board and just attack you with their 2-drop and their 3-drop, and you might lose the game.
Yeah.
Never happened until then. Yeah. Next card.
So next we got Mark of the Lotus. I think this list has to make the list only because like it might be one of the strongest board buff cards ever made. Because the thing is, there's other cards that were buffing afterwards, but none of them ever again were 1 mana for base. So basically, no matter how many minions you got, if you had 4 minions, you got a 4/4 for 1 mana. Like it was just so efficient and so insane. I just think you have to include it, and I think it was actually underrated during its. It's funny because now during this latest meta before this one, where Mark of the Lotus was in the meta and like Druid was kind of a token class, Mark of the Lotus was by far the #1 like buff card you wanted, other than Arbor Up. So it might get cut because of Arbor Up, but it's really good. So next is Grime Street Protector. I think we actually do we cut this one?
Yeah, I think so. This is an era where Paladin was just generally good, but all the Paladin cards were good. This wasn't a specifically good card versus all the others. I wish there was a better indicator of how good Paladin was in this era, but it was just that all of the Paladin cards were good. So I don't know. Grime Street Protector was the 7-mana 6/6 taunt that gave you adjacent minions Divine Shield. It was amazing, but it wasn't that much better than the other cards that existed at the format. The next card is 100% on the list, and I think maybe the winner of the whole thing, Potion of Madness.
Well, I could see it. I don't know if it'll win, but this is one of those cards like with Firelands that I see it in the top 10. Like it's that crazy. You know what I mean? I could see it winning.
It was miserable to play against. Potion of Madness was so good.
I think it was one of the first cards that I definitely was streaming a lot more during this time, and I complained about this card so much. Like, because it was like you couldn't, there was poisons around during that time too. So like, you just couldn't do anything. Like,
yeah.
And if you played certain cards and they had this, you just never could win. It was
right.
over.
Even if they just took your 2/3 and hit your 3/2, that's like, okay, well, they spent a single mana to get a 2-for-1, and I spent 4 mana on my cards. And God forbid they do something better than that. That's like the worst case scenario they could have had. So Potion of Madness was stupid. For that reason, I think we're actually going to take the next card off the list, and we'll go right down to the third card, the 31. Does that sound good to you?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to go to Dragonfire Potion, which is another card from Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. That is the 6 mana spell for Priest that dealt 5 damage to all non-dragon minions. Yeah, that changed how you played. Just straight up changed how you played. This was the era where Priest was first good. This is the 9.4 Dreads meta. This is when dragons were amazing and Priest was incredibly overpowered because you were just offered a wildly large amount of things that worked together. And Dragonfire Potion was the biggest clears that let you set up for the late game. So Dragonfire Potion was a card you wanted to play around but often couldn't.
Are we gonna have to end up cutting Fellfire and Dragonfire just because there's other board clears that are better?
No, it's the era. The era. I don't think we can cut them because in their era there was no light bomb in the Dragonfire era. So
that's fair. Yeah. Next we got Jade Claws.
This reinvigorated Shaman. This made Shaman okay again.
It was the best Jade card, and it wasn't even close.
It was not even close.
It was a card, an 1 mana overload at that time with that type of the meta it wasn't a massive deal, and you basically got 2 swings with 2 damage. You also got a 1/1, and then you would draft every one you saw. So by the time this was pumping out like a 3/3, it was just winning the game.
Yeah. You are going face with the claws and not even caring about that you lost the board value there. Yeah. It didn't matter. The next card is another contender for best card. And
yes.
It's going to be a top 10.
Yes.
Abyssal Enforcer, 7 mana, 6/6, battle cry, deal 3 damage to all other characters. No one liked this card. Everyone liked drafting it and putting it in their decks. No one liked playing against it. It was basically like having a 6/6 Flame Strike in your deck.
So me and Kellen, we're in the Gadgetzan era. Me and Kellen talked about as we were making this list that this set specifically was the at the time was the biggest power spike they ever tried. It was just massive. Now there's definitely
our next card.
Yeah, Fellfire Potion. No, it's fine. Yeah. Fellfire Potion. I can tell you that this was again. I know I wasn't 9.4 like Dreads, but I was this was one of my highest leaderboard finishes ever, and I was definitely top 10. I think it was number 5 or something. Anyway, I can tell you that I literally drafted any minion that was over 5 health and I would just basically be like, if it has 6 health and it lives and it clears their board and goes face, I would do that so much. I won so many games because of Fellfire. I just can't not include it.
Yep. And Fellfire was good in both the aggressive and the controlling decks because in control decks you would just preserve your health total and then Fellfire the board and then you'd be able to finish them quickly. And in the aggressive decks it was just 6 mana deal 5, which worked out great.
Yeah.
The next card is Crackling Razormaw, which is probably one of the best 2-drops that Hunter's ever seen. It's well above things like Kindly Grandmother and all that kind of stuff. This was one of the reasons Hunter wasn't a playable class in that era. Yeah. So I'm gonna toss an asterisk on it, but because the format was not a good Hunter format, but it was one of the best Hunter cards we've ever seen. It's still good now. It's amazing now, even when it comes back. So. We've got another one. This is another. It's not going to be a top 10. It's definitely not on the same level as Flame Strike, but it felt pretty bad to play against. Meteor. Well, Meteor's always been fantastic for me. I think it's one of those cards that you try to play around, and unfortunately, you don't really get an opportunity because it deals 15 damage. So no matter what you do, you can not exactly play around it. It's just too much damage. So, I mean, it killed Ultrasaur. It killed a 7/14. So there wasn't really a way to play around Meteor. The next card, Kellen and I really actually disagree on. This is probably I think this is the only card we vehemently disagreed on, right? Like the only one.
Probably.
Yeah, Primordial Glyph. I think Primordial Glyph's a good card, but your opinion is that it's equivalent to Meteor, right?
No, it's not equivalent to Meteor. My That wasn't my argument. My argument was that it was at the time, it was like basically one of the first discover mechanics where like you really felt like you lost when they played it. And because you could basically there was so many good mage cards at the time and you could just get whatever you wanted. So like in my opinion,
I guess I just didn't have that same experience. So for me, it doesn't make the list, but I understand where you're coming from.
This is a thing where now the card wouldn't be as good because there's a lot more bad mage cards.
I'm talking about in that era. I just did not have that same experience that you did. Yeah.
Well, we're not going to agree on everything.
We agree to disagree on Primordial Glyph. Okay, Spike Ridge Steed. I don't think there's anyone who disagrees.
There's no question.
With this. That's another one that may make the top 10 because Spike Ridge Steed was a card that we just had too much. You just lived in fear. Turn 6. Do you have a polymorph or a hex in your hand? No. Well, let's hope they don't have the Steed because otherwise you just instantly lose. And speaking of that, turn 7. My God, they might have a Vine Cleaver, our 37th card. Vine Cleaver was, that was a card you did not want to see. And it's funny, I've beaten a lot of Vine Cleavers in the last couple of years. I did not used to beat Vine Cleaver.
Well, yeah, Vine Cleaver was a card that you just created so much pressure. It was a very sneakily deceptive card. It didn't look like when you'd look at what it is like, okay, 2 1/1s every turn, like whatever. But a 7, like 4 damage, and then you could just if you were a good player and you knew that you could just swing this face and they had to just deal with all the pressure, you could definitely lose with this card if you didn't understand when to go face. But if you knew how to go face, this was a great card. So I think it gets included. I want to say this now. I think we're just gonna have to cut the legendaries. I get it. So,
so we have Sunkeeper Tarim next, but we're going to get into the Sunkeeper Tarim and his value once we get to Stonehill Defender. So we'll keep him off for now. He's more of a more legendaries are going to have to get out. And I think we're going to have to cut this card too, even though it is very, very good. Free from Amber. Just a great card, but probably not one of the best cards. The next card though is on the list because its win rate has been equally powerful at any point it's been printed, and that's Vile Spine Slayer. That's the 5-mana 3/4 combo, destroy a minion. It's the best creature destruction or minion destruction creature thing we've ever seen. There's just never been something on the same level as Vile Spine Slayer.
So the next 2 cards on our list, I think we're probably going to cut both of them. We got Envenom Weapon and we got Volcano. They probably both get cut.
Envenom Weapon has to get cut. Volcano shaped how we played. I don't know if we can cut it. I think it has to get an asterisk.
I'm pretty sure it's going to get cut. I do think it was really good, but I think when you compare it to like getting down to 64, it won't make it.
It may not. I don't know.
It's fine. I'm okay with an asterisk.
We all played Ungoro and we just lived in. It was a Shaman era. It was the only era Shaman was. Well, one of the few eras Shaman was good. Yeah. And part of the reason was Volcano.
Yeah, I agree.
The next card is on the list, right?
Okay, so the next card is Firefly. Me and Kellen we absolutely love this card, and it was really good. I could see it not making it, but I for now I'm willing. Maybe we should put an asterisk next to it. I do think it was really.
I just can't see it missing. I think it's one of the best cards ever printed in Arena. I would take it over.
I can understand it. I do. Again, believe me, I get it. And the part of this is just trying to figure out where can you make cuts. You know what I mean?
So speaking of that, the neck card probably has to get cut, even though it was very good in its era. It was. See, I think
Gastropod was actually more meta defining than Firefly because of. I just do. I think it was actually more of a. It just had more impact on like late game, early game, like.
And it was very good in the late game. Okay, so Stubborn Gastropod. Well, I actually think one of the problems with Firefly and the difficulty in adjusting to it and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Honestly, Possessed Villager and Mekaru should probably be on this list because they are probably statistically 2 of the best cards ever printed in Arena. Firefly fulfills that same role in that it's a hidden power level. And I think statistically, Firefly probably outperformed Stubborn Gastropod, but Stubborn Gastropod forces your opponent to play in a different way that they would not have done otherwise, and they know that. So I don't know. It's hard to determine. I don't know. This is kind of a weird discrepancy between experiences playing the game and actual statistical power level.
Yeah.
I'm cool with keeping it on. I think it is one of those cards that really did, especially because the Lightforge was so pro Gastropod in its initial printing.
Man, when their initial evaluation, which I think was warranted, was like crazy high. I don't think I can not put. It's funny. Like I wonder if Fire Plume Phoenix gets cut because of the fact that we have Scorpid later, but man, Phoenix was literally at the time, I would draft 6 of these if I could. It was just so
good.
I think we have to keep it. In fact, so like when I look at Fire Plume Phoenix and I look at the other 2 cards like Firefly and Stubborn, I wonder if that card makes it, and that's why we cut the other 2. Because it's like, which of these was the actual definer? I don't know. Like to me, Phoenix was more.
I think Ungoro was just too full of great cards.
It was.
Ungoro. I mean, we have too many good cards already. Ungoro and Mean Streets being next to each other is really difficult because we're going to run into a ton of cards. Speaking of Stonehill Defender, this is definitely on the list because part of the difficulty with Stonehill Defender is that not only is Stonehill Defender just a good card, but it existed in the best era ever to discover taunt minions. It had Lich King, Tyrion's, Tarim, all like everything. I mean, even Serenite Chain Gang. It had so many good taunts to discover that Stonehill was absolutely amazing.
Here's another reason I can say that it's like potentially like top 10. I can say, I don't know if you can think of another card, Kellen, but I don't know if I can think of any neutral card in history of Arena where it basically became a class card for Paladin because of how, like, it almost morphed into a Paladin card because it was so good in Paladin that, like, it just was like nothing would be drafted over it. But then when you go to another class, you wouldn't say the same thing. You know what I mean? True. So interesting.
On that, so the next card is Vicious Fledgling, and this is a card that got banned in Arena because all the feel bads. I'm with the Lightforge on their initial assessment that it is not as good as people felt it was.
I also agree that it should never have been banned. I always said that.
But it did feel terrible to lose, and it was a snowball card. So I think it makes the list because it was miserable to play against.
Should we asterisk this one?
Yeah, let's do it. I don't think it was as good as it was cracked up to be.
All right, next we got Tar Creeper,
maybe we cut Tar Creeper because while it's absolutely fantastic, it isn't different than something else. It's not doing a unique job. It just happened to be really good at its job.
Sure.
I don't know. It's hard to find things to cut.
It is we already had cut down, like, I don't even know many, like, we literally, guys, before this show started, I'm not even kidding, in 1 hour we literally went through every card that was ever printed, and we got it down to this list.
We've cut 28 cards since we started this, so I don't even know what we're gonna do. Primordial Drake is the next card. Screw that card, but
that card makes it.
Thing. Spreading Plague, I think we can cut. It was very good, and it did affect the meta, but it was in a specific class. So, Ultimate Infestation, we cannot cut because that was busted.
That was my meta card, man. That was it.
Righteous Protector is the follow-up card. Oh, Ultimate Infestation is the 10-mana druid spell that deals 5, draws 5, all that crap. Righteous Protector, that is the best Paladin 1-drop of all time, right? Is there a better one?
It is, but I'm not sure if it'll make the list. I mean, it was really good, but I don't know if it really compares to some of these other cards.
I feel like if your opponent casts Righteous Protector on turn 1, I think it's really hard to evaluate these early game cards because as a whole, they don't look like they did that much. But was Righteous Protector better than Ultimate Infestation? I would hazard that it was. I would guess that it was. I would guess Righteous Protector was a better card in your deck than Ultimate Infestation was in their deck. Right? Statistically, wouldn't that pan out?
I mean, the thing is, if, like, I know it's not exactly the same, but, like, we cut Annoyatron, it's kind of the same thing. I just don't, I mean, I think it was insane.
Oh, no. Annoyatron is not the same as Righteous Protector.
I know it's not the same, but I'm just saying, I know it's not the same, but I don't
even think that's a valuable comparison. I think Righteous Protector is so specifically powerful compared to any other 1-drop that existed in that era that it's...
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is its role is the same. It basically, you have to have two sources of damage to go through it. I'm not saying that it's the same card power level wise. I'm just saying that I'm not sure if that, like, if I can't see this being, like, I don't know, a lot of cards that would be in, like, the top 50 or something, I still don't know if I would put it in that level. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that I don't think it's good. I'm trying to find places to cut cards. I'm trying.
Yeah. All right, I'll asterisk it. Okay, I'll asterisk it. All right, Defile has to be in there because that is a card you
Defile
have
has to be on there.
That's the Warlock scaling 1 point of damage thing. It did it 1 AoE. If something died, you kept going up every single time. Yeah. I think that means we have to cut the next card, though, because it did a similar job in the same class. That's Despicable Dreadlord. Very good card. I don't know. Do we have to cut it?
Man.
Or can we I think we leave it in. I think it's too good. It was.
We can asterisk, I guess, if you really want. It was really good.
It was too warping. Take these are legendaries.
Yeah.
I think we have to. These are gone.
I don't know about Death Speaker. Death Speaker was so meta defining. I don't know if I can remove it. But
that's funny. So you did. So one thing with Death Speaker that was interesting is you had to specifically play around it.
Well, the thing was, is I specifically drafted, which was the style that worked, because I was one of the ones with dreads. Like we did really well during this meta. Like you basically drafted 8 3-drops that were really, really good, like Frost Rider, and you would coin your really good 3-drop that they couldn't remove because it was just too much health, and then you would play Death Speaker into whatever they would try to match up against, and you would just immediately win. So yeah.
Okay, so let's leave Death Speaker on there.
Bone Mare at the original mana cost, remember, it was a 7 mana 5/5 that buff for a 4/4 in Game Time. This card for sure could potentially be in the top 15. I think it's really good. I think I actually felt like Bone Mare was more damaging to the world than Fireland's Portal. So I can agree. I can see that.
Yeah, there's a reason that it got nerfed. So let's move on to Flanking Strike. That's the card you. If we have Fire Plume Phoenix on the list, then Flanking Strike's definitely on the list. It was an additional damage, and it was the worst card you could ever see if you played against a Hunter. It was miserable. Flanking Strike is the 4-mana 3-damage spell for Hunter that summons a 3/3 beast. It just did way too much stuff. How do we feel about Lesser Emerald Spellstone?
I mean, I didn't meme with it that much, so like I could find myself cutting it, but it's up to you.
So I do think we have to cut it, unfortunately. And I was a massive Spellstone memer, so I still think we have to cut it.
I actually, to me, like, I know that one was really good, but I did better with the Warrior one. It's not even on our top 184, and nor do I think it should be. But I'm just saying that, like, I had more success with that one.
I think the Warrior one ended up being overall more powerful because it existed for longer. The Spellstone got nerfed midway through the format, so
which is part of the reason I want to get rid of it, because it was good for a short time.
Psychic Duskbreaker is next. That's the 4-mana 3/3 dragon. I actually don't think that ends up making the list. It's the 4-mana 3/3 that AoEs 3 damage.
It's too conditional. We can.
Right. It was very good, and you had to play around it, but almost always your opponent did not have it. The next one is Psychic Scream, which does make the list because my God, that was miserable to play against.
That was one of my least favorite errors ever, for sure.
Yep, and that was the worst one because it even felt bad to play it because you got in a war like a late game war with your priest opponent, or if you were the priest and they were playing warlock or whatever. And with the warlock priest thing, your goal is to run them out of cards over the long run. Didn't matter if you had Psychic Scream because your only defense against their board was to Psychic Scream them, and then your actual win condition disappeared of winning the game over time. So it was miserable to play with, it was miserable to play against, but it was a very, very good card. Speaking of very good cards, this is this next one is on the table for most frustrating cards to play against. Unstable Evolution. It's the 1-mana shaman spell that evolves something and then returns to your hand until end of turn. So
I honestly could see this one having a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not going to win. Maybe it's a top 25, but man, it was so good.
So speaking of cards that are miserable to play against, Dragon Slayer. I actually think Dragon Slayer gets cut, unfortunately, but it was it messed up the whole format. Dragon Slayer really screwed up a format that was based around dragons because it gave your opponent a 2-for-1 if you ever played a dragon.
It was the worst. It was the worst hate card until they printed Poacher.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that one in a second.
That one's not. I think it's fine. We can cut Dragon Slayer.
And we probably have to cut the next one too. This was a good card in its era, but it wasn't actually. It wasn't format defining because your opponent would just cast a 4/3 a lot of the time, and it would end up being a normal card. But it was Lone Champion, the 3-mana 2/4 taunt Divine Shield if you played it with no other minions in play. Then we got Stoneskin Basilisk, a card that is still good to this day.
Yeah.
What do we think about that?
I think it makes it. Yeah. It's probably this. Well, it's going to end up getting up against Venomous Scorpion, and then it's probably going to lose. So, I think one of the things I've been trying to think is if we have cards like that are like similar, but one is obviously better, do you just cut the other one? You know what I mean?
I don't think that's a good way to do it because if we do
I know, and that is part of what I've been trying to. I know I've been trying to make it so it's based on when it came out, and
so
when it came out.
If we go back to Flanking Strike was not that important in its era. It was a very, very good card, and it was a reason Hunter was playable, but honestly, its importance in the era was not that important. Whereas the existence of Stoneskin Basilisk completely changed how you would draft and play your deck. So I think we have to keep Stoneskin Basilisk.
I agree. I think it's fair. I think it's one of the best cards ever.
Speaking of cards that you cannot cut because it completely revolutionized how you played, Fungal Mancer is the 5-mana 2/2, give adjacent minions +2/+2. That card was
one of the issues was that meta with you. So you would have, guys, that meta had Bone Mare and Fungal. It was and Death Speaker. So there was a million cards all together where if you did not clear board, usually you would only worry about clearing board against like Shaman and Paladin and maybe Druid sometimes, but like if you left boards unchecked against any class because these were neutral, you got screwed. And it got really frustrating because you couldn't make decisions about face pushes early in the game. Like that would normally give good players an edge because you would get punished constantly for these cards. So yeah, Fungal has to count.
And so I actually think we do cut the next card.
I do. I agree.
Let's talk about it. So it's Corridor Creeper. This is a card. It only existed for 2 months.
Yeah.
But it did exist for 2 months. It was the 7-mana 5/5. Whenever a minion you control dies, reduce its cost by 1. This card was jacked up. It was way too powerful in both Constructed and in Arena. In fact, I think one of the reasons it was so miserable to play against is because it existed during the... it came out in December and was banned in January, or nerfed aggressively. Nerfed to the point of of almost unplayability. But when a card comes out in December, it gets played more than any other time than summer because... no one's in school, and everyone's on vacation from work. So I know that I, who had a month off basically in December, played more with Corridor Creeper and against Corridor Creeper than almost any other card ever, and it was awful. But it did only exist for 2 months, so I'm going to take it out of there.
So the next card we have on our list is Silver Sword, which was the 8-mana weapon for Paladin. I think it was a 3/3, and it did +1/+1 to the whole board. I think that card has to stay because... it's just it was too meta defining, I guess. I forgot, you snuck this next card on there and I didn't even know we talked about it. Warpath, that one has to be on there, right? Kellen?
Sorry, yeah. No,
I think Warpath was maybe the strongest Echo card.
Yeah, Warpath was a card that made Control Warrior exist in Arena. That just had not happened before. It's the 2-mana deal 1 AoE damage to minions, and then it had Echo, so you could recast it as many times as you wanted that turn. Yeah. It just was one of those things where with Warpath, you could get it into your hand, you could let the game stall out for a while, just absorb cards into your hands, and then blow things up with Warpath, and then win the game later. Yeah. Speaking of, I think actually we have to cut this next card. It was a very good card, but it was good because you had Warpath in your hand. It was Militia Commander. Yep. That's the 4-mana 2/5 rush that got +3 attack the turn it came into play.
Yeah, so you guys can get an idea from what we're saying, what cards we were thinking about. We knew that we were probably going to cut some of these, but to be honest with you, this is so many cards. You have to have a base to start with because it's just so many. I think we can cut Witchwood Grizzly. That was
Witchwood Grizzly's so Witchwood Grizzly's a great card. It's a 5-mana 3/12 that reduces its toughness by the number of cards you have in your hand. But the reason it's so good is because it could be discovered by so many different cards. There were a lot of different taunt discovers and a couple different beast discovers. So I think without those, Witchwood Grizzly would not have been the same. So it wasn't the strength of the card, but yeah. Next, we've got Omega Agent, which probably has to get cut because it was only good on turn 10. That's the 5-mana 4/5 that duplicated itself twice if you had 10 mana. The next card cannot get cut because it ruined the experience of Arena completely.
It did.
Actually, that goes to the next two cards. The next two cards do that.
Yeah, Super Collider was a 5-mana 1/3 weapon that it randomly would hit the one to the side of it. One of the first cleave effects. Holy crap, this card was so... I mean, eventually you learn to play around it, but like there were times where you just couldn't play around it, and it just... Oh man, this card was... This was the first truly broken... Like, I mean, Fiery War Axe at 2 mana was really good, but this was the first weapon with an actual real effect that just broke Warrior open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was in an era where Warrior was a control. I mean, this was the Warpath era. This was the there was a lot of other things that came out that allowed you to be a controlling deck, and this is the best version of the Warrior control cards. It just let you do so much with so little. One card that gave you potentially 3 2-for-1s in just one card, or 3 double trades. It was so good.
Yeah.
And so it's in there. The next card is 100. This is again a competitor for the best cards of all time. 5 mana Giggling Inventor. It's original printing. 5 mana Giggling Inventor. Oh my god, this card was ridiculous. That it cost 5 mana. You got a 2/1 and 2 1/2 Divine Shield taunts. It was way too good. It was so good that it made an entire constructed deck completely busted, even when it was 7 mana. It's such a powerful card. So, man. Yeah, I don't think we need to talk too much about Giggling Inventor. It was busted. It's 100% on the list.
It was, yeah. Actually, this is one that I'm hoping I can get one of the Grinning Goats to agree to come on with Dreads. But this was one that actually had Walked brought up in the comments. And he brought up the stats. And I didn't even know of the stats. But there's certain cards that you just think about as an old Arena player. And you're just like, holy crap, that card sucked.
So I actually think we had to cut the next one, which is Blast Wave. And the one after that, which is Mass Hysteria, which was a great AoE clear, but it wasn't on the same level as some of the other AoE clears we've talked about. Same as the next card, which is Demon Bolt, which was in its format very powerful, but Warlock wasn't the best class at the time. So that's the 8 mana.
I think I want to keep. Can we asterisk that one? I know you don't agree with me on this one, but I think this one was actually pretty.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like Warlock was the best situation, but it was a good card. And then Dragon Maw Scorcher was a format defining card. This is the 5 mana 3/6 battle cry, deal 1 damage to all of their minions. I think we have to leave it on the list because of how much you had to play around it. In this era, it was a card where you just had to pay attention. If they were going into 5 mana, you could not leave your board with a 2/1 and a 3/1. Value trades were not worth it at that point. It was that bad. So, I think we have to cut this next one, though. Amani Warbear.
Oh,
it was a really good card, but I think a lot of people thought it was Firelands Portal, and it just never quite got to that level.
Well, it wasn't Firelands, but
that's what I mean. Like, I think a lot of people felt like that's why it was good.
Asterisk.
All right, I'll asterisk it. Then we got Acorn Bearer.
We both are going to keep that
probably.
one.
Wait, oh, really? I thought we'd have to cut it.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was. So
it's
Acorn
one of
Bear's
the best.
1 mana,
It's
2/1.
one of the best like spread cards ever created, though. I don't know.
It is, but I feel like it filled a role that was a role that a lot of cards could fill. It just happened to be the best one.
Really,
at the time.
what other card could fill that role?
I mean,
saying.
living roots, raise.
Yeah, but I think this one was the best out of them.
I mean, I agree. But if we don't have Lost in the Jungle on here, I don't know if Acorn Bearers should be on the list either. It's a very, very good card, but I don't know if it was a card that, like, I'm going to look back on this format and think, oh, yeah, I remember the days of Acorn Bearer. All right. Next one's on the list. No question.
Well, the funny thing is we might end up just going through all the asterisks and just removing them. We'll see if we're at 64,
Yeah, the next one is so good. It's Conjurer's Calling in its original printing as a 3-drop spell. It destroys a minion and then summons 2 minions that cost the same amount. What
oh my
the
god!
Heck?
Conjurer's Calling. Can we not agree that this might be top 5 and could win it?
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think Conjurer's Calling might be one of the best cards ever printed for Arena.
If you'll notice as we go through these cards, there's certain ones we'll point out that like this one could actually win it. Like there's a couple, and it's funny because there's multiple ones. Like this is going to be so interesting to me. I actually didn't think this debate would actually be this fun, but it's been really cool. All right.
And then speaking of cards that might make it, this I don't think it's quite on the same level, but Evil Miscreant. There was an era where Rogue was just the class 2 play because Evil Miscreant existed. You drafted Rogue every time it was offered because you just wanted to get Evil Miscreant. It's the 3 mana 1/4 combo, add 2 lackeys to your hand. Yeah, it's up there. It's in contention for best cards.
Yeah.
The next card might actually get cut. It was incredible in its era, but it was a specific card that was only good when you were behind. That's Walking Fountain, 8 mana 4/8 Wind Fury Rush, and Lifesteal.
I can see cutting it. Let's just cut it. I don't know.
Yeah, I did love it. I think it fit a lot of good roles. Same thing with the next card, Evil Genius. It was amazing in its era, but again, it was very good at what it did, but it didn't do anything above and beyond what a card should do, and that's Evil Genius. It's a 2-mana 2/2 battle cry, destroy a friendly minions, add 2 lackeys. I don't know. I'm gonna asterisk that one. I think it's close to.
I would be willing. So next we have Eccentric Scribe, and as crazy as that card was, I do think I could see cutting it.
I think so too. It was a card that defined how you played, but it wasn't a card that you couldn't beat. So I'm gonna take it out.
Yep.
The next one is one I think probably should stay on the list.
Yeah, I do agree. It should.
Burly Shovel Fist. That's the 9-mana 9/9 rush. That's all it does. Nothing complicated. But man, it's functions similarly to North Sea Kraken, where you would just play it, kill their best card, and still have a beefy boy left over. And so it's just one of the best 2-for-1s. It's not good now, but at the time it was very good. I think Desert Spear cuts out.
Yep, I agree.
That's our next card. So does the next card. Even though it was very good, it wasn't an auto win. That's Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron.
I don't know. That one I would put an asterisk. That one was pretty.
Okay, yeah. It was so cool, too.
I mean, I don't know. Pharaoh's Cat I could see cutting.
Yeah, I think Pharaoh's Cat comes out for the same reason we've cut a lot of cards. It was good, but it wasn't completely revolutionary. Same with the next card, Rift Cleaver.
I agree. As much as this one pains me, but I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many. This is one of the cards we've talked on the phone about the most. When I lived in Portland, when I first moved there to my own apartment actually, that was 2018. Kellen and I talked about. We had multiple conversations about Warlock specifically in the Rift Cleaver meta, and I think we came to the conclusion that Warlock was the best class, and it was just us who were there, I think, and we loved. Oh man, that was fun. I remember those days.
That was when we had the Kellen show. I think it's when we first decided that we were going to make the show.
That's right, it was. Restless Mummy is next, another card that we probably have to cut. It's a 4-mana 3/2 reborn, but rush. But again, good. This card has to stay.
I agree. Wrapped Golem does.
Wrapped Golem. 7-mana 7/5 reborn.
Wow.
With at the end of your turn, summon a 1/1 taunt minions. That's a Scarab. It was too good.
Yeah, taking you guys back to this era, Reborn was this is actually true in a lot of ways. Actually, this is true with a lot of mechanics. Blizzard tries a lot of mechanics, and a lot of times they just don't ever make the cut in Standard. All the other cards always make it, but the mechanic type of cards are just never quite good enough, because I think they're scared if they made them a power level that was good enough for Standard, it would just break the game. And Echo never made it, but Reborn was a mechanic that really wasn't good in Standard all the time.
Yep.
But man, in Arena, this card, having to remove a minion twice is really hard. And
right. And especially when you have to remove a minion, and then also remove a 1/1 taunt, and then probably do it again if you didn't do it. So yeah, it was hard to beat. Yeah. The next card was a singular card that made your deck good. Embiggen. It's the Druid 0-mana spell that gives all minions in your deck +2/+2 and increases their cost by 1. Just so you know, increasing anything's cost by 1 to giving it +2/+2, or to give it that, is well above average. A 1-mana 2/2 is already a good card. If you just get to add that to all your minions, you're not spending a card on a 1-mana 2/2. So
yeah, this was one of those cards that if you were a good player and understood that you just needed to basically get 2 of these in your deck and then draft the lowest curve you could possibly think of. If you understood that and you didn't draft 7 or 8 drops, because that way you would basically be in control to basically play a couple of cards on 1, 2, and 3. Then you'd embiggen, and then you just have more cards that you could always play. So it was really fun.
Yeah. We probably got to cut the next one, Primordial Explorer. It was incredibly powerful. It was the 3-mana 2/3 hunter poisonous dragon that discovered a dragon. But it really, it was great, but it was a card that was just good. Arcane Breath, same thing.
Yeah, probably agree. Yeah.
And Crazed Netherwind, same thing, because it just didn't exist for long enough. However, the following card did exist for way too long, and that's Faceless Corruptor in its 5/4 situation. My God, this card was a beating.
Yeah.
5-mana 5/4 Battle Cry, turn one of your minions into a 5/4 rush, and it had rush itself. So you had 2 5/4 rushes that would come out after your minion already made a value trade. So if you had a 2/3 that ate a 2/2 or a 1/1 or whatever, it then became a 5/4 rush, could clear something, and it was just so good. It was so busted they nerfed it very quickly. But yeah, Faceless Corruptor as a 5/4 is definitely on the list. I don't think it'll make the top 5, but it's probably top 15.
And the funny thing about this card is the nerf version could arguably make the list.
Exactly. It's that good.
Yeah. It really could.
Twin Tyrant?
Yep.
I don't know. Do you think Twin Tyrant was powerful? I don't know. I've never heard you talk about it ever, Kel.
I think it's the card that actually made me leave Hearthstone for 3 months before I came back. So yes, I was they kept a set of dragons in the meta for like ever, and eventually I just couldn't take it anymore.
And just for reference, it's the 8-mana 4/10 dragon that Battle Cry deals 4 to 2 random enemy minions. My God, it was miserable to play against. It often felt like you would because it only had 4 attack. There'd be so many situations where your opponent would cast Twin Titan, clear your board, or Twin Tyrant, clear your board. You'd get some small stuff in play, but they could not kill you because it only had 4 attack. So you'd feel like there's I got a chance, I could come back. No, you could not. It's just that your death was slow and miserable because Twin Tyrant would kill you over the course of 5 turns. Could have 10 health, so you couldn't kill it either.
Yeah, me and Kellen kind of discovered as we were going through the list, it's kind of the reason why none of the Explorer cards, which were all fantastic, are not on the list, is because one of the only reasons they were that good was because Twin Tyrant existed. So
yes.
We're going with the card that actually made the other cards good, not the other way around. So
yeah, I think there's going to be one exception to that, but we'll get to that in a second.
Okay,
so
sure.
I have the Storms on our list. I think we got to cut that. It was very powerful in its era, but it was a 10-mana class card, so you did not see it that often. Are you cool with cutting Eye of the Storm?
Yeah, I can see it.
It's close, but you like this next card quite a bit, and I thought it was very good too.
The only reason is because it's probably, man, it's one of the strongest taunts that was ever made.
And that's Winged Guardian. That's the 7-mana 6/8.
You can asterisk if you want, and I can understand. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was very good. So Winged Guard, it's 7-mana 6/8 beast with Reborn and Hexproof. Not Hexproof. What's it called? My goodness. What is it called when you can't target? Opposing. Well, I guess it just says opposing.
You mean? Well, they called it. Yeah. It's untargetable or whatever. It's
untargetable. Yeah. Miserable to play against. And then so this is one I have had 0 experience with. Illidari Inquisitor. It's our first Demon Hunter card. It's the 8-mana 8/8 rush that attacks any minion or any target that your hero attacks. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the thing is that I want to include a couple of Demon Hunter cards, but they're obviously going to be. There's so many strong ones. If I would just, power level just include, I can include 1 million Demon Hunter cards, but I'm going to just include the most powerful ones. I think it's
also tough because a lot of the Demon Hunter cards varied. They nerfed and buffed them so rapidly through everything. They just continually changed them. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Illidari Inquisitor is still one of the most powerful cards. I mean, it's been around for not that long, but we do like Illidari Inquisitor. I think it lives up to the test. Power of the Wild, I think, unfortunately, has to get cut. I just don't think it's a great card, but I don't think it messes with anything.
I'm sure you're not going to believe this, but I wasn't even going to add it to the original list, even though I do really like it.
Yeah, and I think Fire Elemental fits the same bill. It's a great card, but I do think this next card in its initial stage does have to be added. That's 1 mana Execute.
Oh my god.
The initial printing of Execute, it cost 1 mana. It was so good, and then when it came into existence with cards like Ravaging Ghoul and Blood to Ichor, and there's a number of things that triggered it easily before it got nerfed, I think that card's definitely on there. Then we got a couple of Demon Hunter cards again. Skull of Gul'dan, what do you think? Does that stay on?
Oh, we need to put it in the, well, actually, I don't know if it was, how quickly it was nerfed. I have to look, because it was actually, if you can believe this, it was 5 mana when it came out. And even at 6, it's so crazy.
I think we keep Skull. I've won too many games by casting Skull of Gul'dan.
I'm going to put a little thing, check, I don't know, check when nerfed or something, because I don't know if it...
And then we have Coilfang Warlord next, which actually experienced an incredible renaissance once it was given, I don't know, what, like 180% offering rate to Demon Hunters for like a month. That was a miserable time. Coilfang Warlord is the 9-mana 9/5 rush that has Death Rattle, summon a 5/9 taunt demon. That card was just it's very much like Burly Shovel Fist or North Sea Kraken, where it destroys something and then you get left with this huge body. And
I'm not sure if I've ever seen a card that was so strong in Arena that we'll never see play. Like, it's one of those cards, I don't know what they were thinking, because they knew this was never going to be in a regular deck.
Right.
So
in constructed. So why make it?
There's literally a card that's one less. There was a 7-mana 5/9 taunt for 7 mana. This is 1 more mana and basically deals 9 damage. So just...
All right, next we got Marsh Hydra, which is the 8-mana 7/7 Druid Beast that has is it 7? Is it 8 mana? Is that right? Or is it 7 mana?
The which one? March. Oh,
March Hydra.
it's a 7.
Oh, it's 7 mana. Wait, is it? Yeah, it's 7 mana, 7/7. Sorry. And when you attack with it, it has rush, and it has when you attack with it, you add an 8-drop to your hand. Marsh Hydra is a card that wins the game by itself. You just play it, you attack once, and now suddenly you have the rest of the game figured out because you have more mana to spend than any opponent could possibly have. It's probably not as good now. I mean, it's still great, but because everybody has so much mana to spend, like you're not going to run out. But in its era, it was absolutely unbelievable. Speaking of that, we got Libram of Justice next. Libram of Justice is the 5-mana paladin spell that gives you a Light's Justice weapon as well as cast equality.
But only on the enemy minions.
Oh wait, is that right? I didn't even realize that.
You didn't know that? Yeah, it's.
I've always been losing when I cast it.
Yeah, dude, it actually only casts the 1 health on the enemy minions, which is why it's so dumb.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I don't think we can cut Libram of Justice. It's the best Libram. It's a single-handed. It's an AOE removal in a class that should not have it. So yeah, I think we got to cut the next card. Unfortunately, even though it's very good.
Yeah, I agree.
It's Cursed Vagrant. We love Cursed Vagrant, but no. Bogspine Knuckles is the next card, which unfortunately has to stay because it was originally printed as a 4/2 weapon. It's still insane in its current era, and I mean, I still lose when my opponent casts it, but it's offered so infrequently now. But initially, its initial timing in the era, in Arena was, it was too good. Bogspine Knuckles was a 5-mana 4/2 weapon that said after you attack, evolve all your minions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but that means you win the game. So that's what happens.
Yeah.
And the next card. So man, we're getting to a lot of cards that just can't be cut here. Imprisoned Scrap Imp is the next card, and this is a card that.
And this is one we can put the initial because it initially buffed everything in your hand by 2/2.
Did it really?
Yes, it was original.
I don't even remember that. It's so good now.
And now it's just a 2/1 buff, but it was actually a 2/2 buff.
So it's the 2-mana 3/3 dormant for 2 turns. When it becomes when it undormants or when it wakes up or whatever, you give all minions in your hand +2/+1. Even if it gave +2/+2, God, it's just it's one of those cards that if your opponent casts it on turn 2, you assume you're losing. So yeah, I think we can cut the next card, Imprison Gnarg. It's a great card, but I don't think it lives up to some of the other warrior things that we're going to talk about in a second. We have all the Og Merchants included in one line here. What do we think about that? The Og Merchants.
Oh wait, you said you cut Ganarg?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can cut Ganarg.
Well, I thought so. Imprison Gnarg is one of those really good cards that does a job that the class can already do. So it was very efficient at what it does.
I think this one honestly is a contender. It
really?
Yeah, it's a card where if your opponent plays it, your win rate is like 80%. It's crazy. I don't know what it is, but it's like
but
ridiculous.
You have to have it on turn 1. If your opponent plays it later, it's so much worse. Yeah. Okay, let's leave it. I'm asterisking it. I'm not sure about that. I definitely think it's good, but I mean, I love the card. I play it. I draft it every time. But all right, so next we got Og Merchants. What do you think about them?
This is a tough discussion only because in terms of Og Merchant, like in terms of pings, and we talked about pings last week, they're literally some of the strongest neutral cards like ever made.
Ever, yeah.
I don't know if you can not include.
I think we have to include them. The entire world revolves around Og Merchants right now. You can't leave. Like whenever you have a 1-toughness minion in play, you are nervous. Whenever you have a minion that can trade up, you are happy. So
yeah,
I think we got to include them. They're just too good. Imprisoned Vile Fiend is next. This is the best 2-drop neutral minion of all time.
Potentially, yes. I actually think it is.
Yep.
It's the reason why everybody wants Dorman to be gone.
Yep. Speaking of best at their cost neutral minions of all time, how about Burrowing Scorpid? The 4-mana 5/2 battle cry, deal 2 damage to a minion. If that minion dies, becomes stealthed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Burrowing Scorpid probably has to be on here. The next card is Scavenging Shivara. That might get cut. It's very good, but it existed in a world like if you take Scavenging Shivara out of its time, then it's gonna be the best card. But if you include it in the era, it's going to be outclassed by things like Scorpid or Vile Fiend.
Yeah.
This next card is my favorite weapon ever printed. I don't think it's the best weapon ever printed, but it's certainly up there. True Aim Crescent. Yeah, it's just I don't know what to say about True Aim Crescent. It's the 1-mana 1/4 that after it attacks, all minions you control attack the same target or the same minion target. Although it does go in order of them coming into play. So it's one of the best cards you can play in Druid or sorry, in Demon Hunter or Hunter. I don't think we can cut it. I think it's probably led to more victories in those two, especially in Hunter, than maybe any other card outside of original.
Yeah.
Call of the Wild, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got a couple cards here that we don't really have to talk about next. Cycle of Hatred. I don't think we really have to discuss Cycle of Hatred.
Twilight Runner we could maybe cut, honestly, as much as I love it.
Yeah, I love Twilight Runner too, but again, it's just a good card. It doesn't fit the bill. Firebrand is the 3-mana 3/4
That's a game changer.
Minion.
That was
game changer. Yeah, it has the spell burst, deal 4 damage randomly amongst enemy minions. It's one of the best mage cards. You have to have it. Next we have First Day of School at 0 mana. Again, have to include it. One of the best cards of all time. I think we can cut Blessing of Authority because of its situationalness.
Yeah, and I actually think we can cut Draconic Studies because it's only because of the dragons. It's not inherently one of the best cards ever made. Like right now, it feels like the best card because of the new Broken Core set.
Well, but that's what I mean. That's what I think we need to say. Like, isn't Draconic Studies the best priest card right now? Like, isn't the best priest card right now? Is there a better priest card?
Right now, yes. But I'm just saying, like, even during... Yeah, this one's tough because we're trying to evaluate them when they first came out. And, like, when it first came out, this card was not... It was very good, but was not...
Okay, so I actually thought... Okay, so, yeah, I mean, if we evaluate it in the meta, it was best in. Draconic Studies makes it. But if we evaluate it in its initial thing, then no. So, okay, we'll take it out then for that reason. I think Brittlebone Destroyer probably out, too.
Yeah. That's fine.
It's very good, but it doesn't quite live up to First Day of School level. Coerce.
I think it's got to
probably
make it.
makes. Yeah,
I think Tidal Wave. Tidal Wave is next, and I think that one gets cut.
Yep, Tidal Wave was a card you had to play around, but you didn't see it enough. Oh, here's a card we don't have to discuss at all. Troublemaker.
Yeah, this one might actually win.
Yeah.
Probably not, but it could. It could win.
Yeah. Probably have to cut the next couple. Animated Broomsticks on here. It definitely was a card you wanted, but it wasn't a card you could play around. So I think you cut it. It didn't really change how you played. It was a very good card, but there were a lot of cards you'd take over it. Like I would take a perfect curve filler. There were times when you would play Animated Broomstick and you would give all your minions rush and you just win the game. But I do think it doesn't quite make it.
I think Wandmaker gets cut too.
Yeah, and also Fishy Flyer too. These are cards that are just good, really good cards, but they existed in a world where all the cards were good.
Yeah.
What about these next?
We might have to keep Mage Scribe.
Yeah, I think Mage Scribe is one of those cards that Onyx Mage Scribe. That's the 6-mana 4/9 spell burst. Add 2 spells to your hand. This was the era where Priest was 50% of your matchups, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, that does it. Smug Senior, we probably have to cut. Again, a very good card. Would normally fit the bill, but in this era, it doesn't quite. Now, the next card does, right?
I think Plague Purdrake can make it. I do think that it's like the best 8-drop for a neutral card, maybe ever. And I think for that reason, it just has to stay.
Yeah. Next card, no discussion. Expendable performers. No discussion necessary. Next card, no discussion. Arbor Up. No reason to talk about it.
Yep.
Okay, now next one I think we could talk about, Carousel Griffin.
Is that's the one for Paladin, right? The one that gets an 8.
That's the Paladin 5-mana 5/5 Divine
I think
Shield.
we can cut
battle. Man, it was so good, but it did require you to cast it after turn 6, so maybe that's something. We have Original Hysteria next, which obviously makes it.
Yeah,
that's the 3-mana Warlock Priest spell that, well, everybody knows what Hysteria does. So I don't talk about it. Storm Strike probably has to get cut. Man, Storm Strike's good.
I don't know if we can cut it. We might cut it, but let's leave that one for now.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw an asterisk on it. Man, it's good. It's just like, again, it's in this era where everything does 2 things.
Have we even got really this? I guess you know what, Kellen? For how fast we're going, we actually almost got this down to 100, which I think is actually, it might take 2 rounds of cuts to actually get it down because just there's so many cards to think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. God, there are.
This is a very, for people listening, this is a very difficult thing to do. Like we don't want to cut these cards. Like we obviously know what the power level these cards are, but like somewhere we have to make lines because there's only 64 that make it. So
even the cards that we are cutting, we both love. Like even the cards we disagree on, we both love. Like Primordial Glyph, I love that card. But so it's really tough. Cascading Disaster, I don't think makes the list. We just didn't see it enough, and it's too hard to trigger. Sword Eater does. Sword Eater's the 4-mana 2/5 taunt that gives you a Fiery War Axe when you play it. It's a warrior card. It's also a pirate, so it just does. I mean, I don't think there's a deck where I wouldn't take 7 Sword Eaters. I just love that card. Next card I think we can cut, which is so sad to me because I believe it was one of the best neutral minions they ever had in that era, which is Darkmoon Dirigible, the 3-mana 3/2 Divine Shield that has Rush if you corrupt it. But man, that's a hard one to cut. Probably the same thing on this next card, Fleethoof Pearl Tusk.
I think Pearl Tusk might have to stay. Somewhere.
Think so? So right now, Pearl Tusk is not as good. It's still a good card, but it's not as good as it was. Yeah, it was a card. I mean, it did die. Yeah, you're right. Fleethoof Pearl Tusk was one of those cards where if my opponent played it, we would be very sad. Very sad if they played it against us.
Yeah.
Speaking of cards that work well with Fleethoof Pearl Tusk, Claw Machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a 6-mana 6/3 Death Rattle. Draw a minion from your deck.
I definitely think this one's like a top 25.
Yeah. And then we've got so we finally got into the current set, and there's only a few cards from the current set, but man, they are good. We've got Minion Swipe. Is that what you call it? Minion Swipe?
I call it Swipe Snake. Swipe Snake.
I
love that name, Swipe Snake.
It's the 3-mana 3/2 Rush that has Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all opposing minions. I don't really like it when my opponent casts that card. What do you feel?
I just know that when I pulled 2 of them out of my deck at once with Blackthorn, there's a 7-mana card for Demon Hunter that is a 7-mana. I think it's a 4/6 or it's a 3/6, and it pulls out 3 Death Rattles that cost less than 5. And when you pull 2 of these Swipe Snakes and in a Performers, which is the 4-mana 3/3, and you pull them all out at once, the opponent just concedes. So yeah, I actually don't know if Fell Rattler makes. Actually, it's so good. I don't know. Maybe it makes the list.
Oh, it's tough. I think it makes the list because of recency bias, but also it is. I mean, Swipe didn't make the list, so maybe it doesn't. But I don't know.
Yeah, we don't even have Fireball on this list. Like, I mean, we try. I mean, there's only so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, the next one on the list. Are we gonna cut that one? Are you cutting it?
Oops, I didn't mean to. No,
oh, I didn't know that.
No, this is a card. So these are cards that have led to a lot of 12s for us recently. So Fell Rattler, I know you have gotten 12 with it at least twice, maybe 3 times.
4 times.
4 times. Okay, yeah. So I have Seed Cloud Buckler on here because I am the worst Paladin player of all Arena Leaderboard players, I'm pretty sure. Like, I legitimately believe I am the worst Paladin player of all Arena Leaderboard.
It's because he wants to hero power no matter what the situation. That's why I've told him.
That's true. And I still easily went 12 when I had 2 Seed Cloud Bucklers. Yeah. That's the 3-mana 2/3 weapon that has Death Rattle, give all your minions a Divine Shield. Yeah, that card's just too good. And then we got Unstable Shadow Blast, which is the super busted Warlock spell. That's can you go over that card real quick?
This is a 2-mana. This is a 2-mana spell that deals 6 damage to a minion. It doesn't go face, but it does do a minion, and the excess damage, you get dealt to yourself. But like pretty much in the early game, you don't care taking 3 damage when you're removing 2 damage when you're removing a Sunwell Initiate. In late game, when they have like a 4/10 taunt, you're just really happy to only have to spend 2 mana to get through 6 damage of it. It's insane. It's like I think it's actually potentially the craziest like single target removal they've ever printed.
Yeah,
like seriously.
I mean, it's up there with Hex and Polymorph as like one of the best ever, and it costs less, so you can use it earlier. So I don't even know what to say.
Oh, and now for the craziest weapon ever printed, Outrider's Axe.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I have a question. Is Outrider's Axe? Well, this might actually come up later. Is Outrider's Axe or True Aim Crescent a better weapon?
Oh, Axe for sure.
I don't think so, but I do agree that Outrider's Axe is absolutely amazing. It's the 4-mana 3/3 warrior weapon that draws a card every time it kills something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this card is busted. It completely revolutionizes how you experience.
What a question.
It's so good. So, yeah, Outrider's Axe has to be on the list. Then we got 2 cards that may end up not making the list. Sunwell Initiate. It's one of the best 3-drops of all time. 3-mana 3/4. Frenzy, gain Divine Shield. So it It's one of the best 3-drops. It's one of those cards where if your opponent plays it on 3 and you don't have the exact perfect answer, you might be screwed. I think it's less good since the release of the subset, but it's still absolutely amazing. I think you always want it as your 3-drop. I can't think of a situation where you wouldn't. Yeah. Worst case scenario, it's a 3-mana 3/4, which you're never going to be unhappy about. And then we have Venomous Scorpid rounding out our final card. Venomous Scorpid, a card we've all grown to hate over the last 2 months.
It actually might be the strongest Discover card ever made.
I think it's better than Ethereal Conjurer. I think it's better than Steward of Scrolls. I think it's better than Cabal Courier. Yep, I think it's better than all of the other cards that do the same thing because it has infinite attack. It is a
This is what I always talk about with Scorpid. So normally when you play a Discover card like this, generally when it's later game, you're looking for a removal, right? Like that's what usually you're trying to fix a problem. The crazy thing about this card is so we can, if I'm comparing it to what's the card that does the +1 spell damage you just said?
Steward of Scrolls.
Yeah, so Scrolls does that. You look for a problem, right? Well, you might not find it, and then if you don't, you lose. Well, here's the thing about Scorpid. Scorpid by itself, without even getting the card, is a removal because it's a poison card. That's 3 health. And so you can actually play it just to be a removal and then draft something greedy behind it because you already have a removal on the board, or you can just have a second removal. It's so stupid.
It is so
It makes no sense.
It's so dumb. So yeah. I'm actually going through and cutting a lot of the cards we've asterisked right now. A lot of them are close, but I want to get it down to 100. We're at 97 cards right now, so we did not quite get down to 64. We still got 33 cuts to make.
Did you leave Mark of the Lotus? You didn't even consult.
I left Mark of the Lotus. I left all the ones that you wanted. I cut all the ones I wanted. So
well, we can cut Shit Horse. Did we cut Shit Horse?
Sorry, I did cut Shit Horse. That was more of a meme than a real consideration.
It was. We had to have some fun on here.
Yeah.
So we got it down to 100.
More that I think we'll agree to, but we got it under 100.
Okay, so if we think about it, we only have to cut another 30-ish. That's not too bad.
So Kel and I will do that. We'll post the final list. The final cuts will be made over the course of the weekend, and we'll post the final list alongside the podcast release on Monday. So get ready, because next week we'll have the first round, the round of 64. We'll have 32 matchups. I don't know if we'll get through 32 of them, but we'll have the first, at least 16 of the first matchups between these cards. And we're having a knockdown, drag out brawl. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Between all of these cards to determine who's going to be. Do you have any favorites right now in terms of top finishers?
To like win it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I've got a couple in mind.
Like I said, because I'm actually to me, like sometimes I know Violence Portal is not nearly as strong as some of the cards that are going to be considered, but based on like how it affected the meta, like it's hard to not think of it being a contender. You know what I mean? So like, because remember, we're going to be, so what's going to happen, chat, to reiterate, once we get it down to 64, we're going to basically make a bracket, and then each card in that round, just like March Madness, we'll have 2 cards up against each other, and we'll have to decide which one of those moves on to the next round. Then it'll be down to a round of 32. So next week, what's going to happen is, I'm thinking the way we're going to do this is next week we're going to break it down from 64 to 32. And then I think maybe the next week, I think with only 32, like that many left, we can just bring the panel on and just bam through them and just finish it. So that's what I'm thinking we'll do.
Yeah,
so,
I'm with you.
So it'll be 2 weeks of breaking it down.
Yeah. So I think that's all we got today, right? That's where we're at. We got 90. I cut another card, so 96 now. We're at 96 cards.
Wow. We're at 96. Yeah, we'll him and I will have a discussion. We'll have to get down. We'll get down to 64. Again, what happened was, as I made this Reddit post, and as people started listing the cards, it made me think about it more and more, and I started realizing, like, holy crap, how am I ever going to get this down to 64 cards to actually run this tournament? You know, like, it's crazy. All right. I don't even know which episode is this. Is actually the 20th?
This is number 20. We've been doing this for 5 months. 5 months. No, we haven't missed a week.
Yeah.
Well, we missed one. Well, did we took a break?
We did technically miss one, but it's fine.
Oh, we didn't miss it. It was, okay. Yeah.
All right, so guys, that's going to do it for the 20th episode of the Kelcast. If you guys enjoy arena content, this is where you want to be. Remember, you can join us live on Twitch every week at 8 p.m. on Saturdays here on Twitch, or you can wait to download the podcast on Mondays on any podcast website you like to listen to, or you can run over to YouTube if you want to see the visual You want to see it visually, you can also watch it on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitch, where I am going to be streaming daily now, 7 a.m. Eastern. And you can also, like I said, find me on YouTube or Twitter or on Twitch by searching Keldar, Keldar. Make sure, again, you're going to tune in next week. Next week, like we said, Kellen and I are going to do the first round to try to get through the most of it quick. We'll do the very first, it'll be the first round of the Grand Arena tournament. We'll break down all those cards. We'll fight it out. That'll be really fun. And then we'll post the next list. And then again, just to give an update, in 2 weeks from now, we'll actually bring on Dreads. And we don't have the other guests lined up, but we'll get them. So it'll be really fun. Thanks again to John Laux for the music used in the episode. You can find all the links to the contributors in the show notes. This has been the Kelcast. We'll see you next week.
Okay, Kel. I need to get something the fuck off my chest.
Okay.
How the fuck is Thor Ragnarok not appreciated as the best Marvel movie? It's clearly the case that all of the best Marvel movies are the tongue-in-cheek comedies that utilize characters from the universe and put them into whatever situation. Into the Spider-Verse, Ant-Man, etc., etc., etc. Those are always the best ones, and yet nobody thinks Thor Ragnarok is the best Marvel movie. I don't understand. The better the comedy, the better the Marvel movie. We need things like Endgame to maintain the drama and the storyline and all that stuff. They need to do all, keep things, whatever, going. But what's memorable from Endgame? Fat Thor, Cap with the hammer, and CGI portals. That's the only things you remember. Which one do you remember as your favorite part? It's either Cap or the Fat Thor. Almost everybody. I can't think of a person who doesn't think of those things. And we only love the portals because they look cool, but they aren't really story driving or important. We love Cap with the hammer because it's proving something that we always thought was true. We love to be like, oh, I always knew he could do it. That's great. Okay. But what's the best part? Thor being ridiculous and all the characters that are funny playing PS4 on a couch. That's the part you love. That's why Thor Ragnarok is the best Marvel movie. It's not close. By the way, what was the most popular meme leading up to Endgame? Ant-Man committing deicide through butthole expansion. That's the thing that what people cared about. Was Ant-Man going to explode in Thanos' butt? That's what people thought was going to happen. They thought that was the funniest option because that's what they cared about. Humor. Humor is why we love the genre of Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's what matters. It's what people care about. It's the only reason that you should watch this stuff. Thor Ragnarok is the best Marvel movie. I have a few supporting points. Number one, Robert Downey Jr. is one of people's favorite actors in this thing because he's an incredible comedy actor. He was on SNL. Did you know that? I don't know. He was on SNL. Number two, Spider-Man exists. Number three, all the X-Men movies suck because they were too serious. Number four, Green Lantern might have actually worked if it had been a Marvel movie because Ryan Reynolds could have been a funny person instead. So, anyways, that concludes it. Oh, wait, Deadpool. Deadpool is one of the most widely beloved Marvel things too. Guess what it is? It's a freaking comedy.
It's really good. I love that movie.
That's all I have to say. Put some respect on Thor Ragnarok's name. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm out. I'll see you later. Bye.
All right.